Welcome to another episode of 5 Sports. I'm your host, Evan Ruenberg. Alongside me, as always, is Matthew Choi. And today we have an exciting show with a lot to break down for you, including the NBA and NHL off seasons. The NBA draft went down, a little bit of controversy with the Raptors pick. We'll talk about that. NBA free agency is well underway. The Lakers making some big moves. We'll definitely focus on the Lakers and if they have any chance to now go on and elevate their team into an NBA contender. And we'll also cover a little bit of the NHL free agency. We'll talk a little bit about the Leafs departures, most notably Zach Hyman, Freddie Anderson, two long-serving Leafs players. So the Leafs are definitely moving in a different direction. And of course, with the Olympics well underway, the Canadian women have absolutely been dominating, as well as Andre Degrasse. So we'll cover all of that in today's show. Matthew, let's start with you, and let's start with the Lakers because they definitely had the most notable free agent, or I'd say they definitely added the biggest piece or the biggest name out there in Russell Westbrook, as well as adding a lot of veterans to their squad, including Melo. As a Lakers fan, where do you assess this team today compared to maybe last week?
It's definitely an improvement. I'll say. I think adding Russell Westbrook really allows like LeBron to kind of share a load. I think a huge thing last year, especially with the condensed seasons and like playing the more games back to back. I think that like a load kind of took a toll on LeBron, and that's kind of led to his injury. The same with Anthony Davis. I think having someone like Westbrook who is experienced, who's slightly younger than LeBron, can kind of like manage the load for like both players. And I think it was probably just like overall the right decision. In terms of everyone else, I do think that the depth still worries me a bit on the Lakers. We add a lot of veteran talent. I'm not sure how much uh they will offer because Dwight you look at the names. Dwight Howard is not the Dwight
Yeah.
Howard that he was 10 years ago. Neither is
Mm-hmm.
Carmelo Anthony. Neither is Trevor Ariza. But they are still serviceable players, and I'm
Mm-hmm.
hoping that they'll be enough. But it's really questionable because it's such an aging core now that they've acquired, and you know that this isn't going to be for a long term thing. It's really
Mm-hmm.
just to have like a win now mentality. Give Westbrook his ring, give Melo his ring, get LeBron another ring. So it's
Yeah, it feels almost like a nostalgic kind of team
yeah.
that unless you're a Laker hater, that maybe it's going to be easier to root for. Yeah, that's a very fair point. Is I mean, you could just look at the ages of all the free agents and all the talent or all the players that exist on that roster currently. I think losing Caruso does hurt because defensively
Yeah.
he added a lot, and maybe we could meme a little bit because of the hair, the style, just the way he plays, the fact that he ended up on the Lakers. But there's no doubt, there's no kind of second guessing the value he added to that team. He definitely added a lot of valuable minutes. I do worry about the Lakers. I don't know if they're a better team. Westbrook's definitely a good addition, but I do worry about how him, Davis, and LeBron are going to mesh together, especially him and LeBron, because they feel like very similar players. They're going to go, balls to the wall for 48 minutes or however long they're on the floor. But I do worry about the fact that there aren't many shooters on this team. I do think they need like a pure shooting guard, someone that, if you leave open for three, either Russ or LeBron could kick out. I don't see that on their roster currently. I still think they need a piece. And I do worry about age. I can feel like this team is going to take some time to gel just because it's a lot of kind of different additions and kind of a lot of big personalities that may clash. So I think Frank Vogel's going to have, a challenge getting a system that works for everyone. And I think
Yeah.
that will take time. But at the end of the day, you're playing for the playoffs. And, we talked about Brooklyn last year, if all their star talent, how it doesn't matter what they do in the regular season, it matters what they do in the playoffs. The big question I'm looking at the Lakers is Davis's health, because if he's not healthy, you're not winning anything. That's done and dusted. So Davis's health is going to be crucial throughout the season. And the other thing is they need a 3-point shooter. I still don't see that. They don't look. They don't need every game to have great 3-point shooting because they have enough talent on that roster. But I do think they need a shooter or two, whether they pick up someone else or later in the season. There's definitely time for them to add that. But I think that's going to be an issue with their current roster. And then again, just age and just meshing together. They definitely have the talent. So I think it'll maybe take at least 2 to 3 months till we see them at their best.
Yeah.
But the question is, can they reach their best, and can they win the playoffs against energetic teams like young and up and coming teams? I still think Phoenix and Denver, the way they shoot, the way they play, like the pace they play at, I think that's going to be a huge challenge to the Lakers if that's a team they run up like against the playoffs. I don't think they're contenders at this moment. Just they have LeBron, to me, that doesn't make you contenders. A lot of question marks, but it's going to be interesting. Adding Russell Westbrook was definitely it's gonna it's gonna definitely raise some eyebrows. It's definitely gonna make for a few good stories for the upcoming season because wherever Russell Westbrook and LeBron James goes, there's definitely drama that follows.
Yeah, and I see this season going like one of two ways. I know there's like the positive and negative side. The positive, the best case scenario is that this is a championship team because the talent alone is able to bring them there. And like we know that
Okay.
like from experience that any team that LeBron goes to or Westbrook goes to, the team
Yep.
is naturally elevated.
Okay.
That being
Yep.
said, worst case scenario is I could see it's going like the 2013 Lakers when
Okay.
Howard and Nash joined Kobe and Gasol. We thought that was going to be a great team, but injuries and age just played the team down, and eventually it led to Kobe's Achilles injury because he had to carry so much of a load because everyone else
Mm-hmm.
was already injured before throughout the season. And
Yep.
to me, that's the nervous part of this because it's an aging core. Injuries will play a factor because someone like Andy Davis, one of the younger guys, already is plagued with injuries, and that's what kind of makes me nervous about the season because it could it kind of best case scenario talent will be enough. Worst case scenario, it reminds me of the 2013 Lakers.
Um. Yeah, it's very yeah. I mean, look, the Lakers, anything's really up for grabs at this point because there are a lot of question marks, and like any new team, there's I think there's a lot of departures and a lot of additions. So I just think it will take time for them to find their best and to kind of get on the same page and just understand each other. NBA moves fast in today's day and age, so you just
Yep.
have to be very aware and alert. Russell Westbrook, I'm less concerned about Russell Westbrook's age and LeBron's fitness because we know LeBron is just basically like what's the word, LeBron, basically like uncharted territory with
Yeah.
LeBron and just his athletic abilities because we really haven't seen that out of an athlete and the longevity that he's been able to sustain. So
Yeah.
I'm not worried about his fitness or neither Russell Westbrook's energy because he brings it every night and he hasn't slowed down yet. I don't expect him to. When I say age, I just worry about really everyone else coming together. Like
Yeah.
Melo, like look, Melo doesn't inspire me the way he used to. Like we saw what he did with Portland. Like he was an
He's become a
effective
role player.
sometimes. Yeah,
He's
like
become a role
stick him in
player.
the corner maybe, but he doesn't create his own shot as much as he used to. So look, we'll definitely see how the Lakers kind of gel. But I think it will definitely take a good 3 months to kind of see them at their best.
Yeah.
Let's go through the other signings. I just have a list because a lot happened, so I'm just going to go through some of the more notable signings. Actually, let me talk about some of the guys that haven't been signed, and I just want to get your impression on where you think they could go, who they could help. The three free agents or unrestricted free agents I'm looking at right now that haven't been signed: Danny Green, Oladipo, and Schroeder. Where do you see either of those three going, and who can really have an impact on any given team?
I think Oladipo's gonna stay with the Heat.
Mhm.
I think
That'd be smart for him. Miami's
yeah,
definitely building something there. He would fit well in either shooting guard or small forward. They
exactly.
could
With
definitely rotate.
this that
Yep.
starting lineup of Lowry, Oladipo, Jimmy Butler, PJ Tucker, and Bam, that is a
Yeah.
championship level starting
And
lineup
then
right
you could
there.
bring Duncan, Robinson, and Hero off
Tyler
the
Hero off
bench.
the bench, yeah.
Yeah. Let's stick with Miami for a second, just because we're on the topic. Adding Kyle Lowry, huge. Miami's going to be back next year.
Yeah.
Pat Riley did an amazing job, kind of reassembling, or not reassembling, but just getting the right piece in. Kyle Lowry definitely felt like the missing piece against. Well, I mean, they got swept by the Bucks last year, but I think with Kyle Lowry, they definitely would have had a better shot. You just look at his gritness, his toughness, his playoff mentality. I think him and Jimmy
Yeah.
Butler are going to work really well together, and I think
And
Kyle Lowry is going to be able to kind of nurture Hero a little bit more.
yeah.
And I think Duncan Robinson, he got a big payday. He's definitely going to have a much better year compared to last year, where I think kind of the playoff hype got to both of those young superstars last year. So I think this could be their year to kind of elevate, especially Hero, because we definitely didn't see Hero at his best last year. Yeah, so I like your Miami call with Oladipo. I think he can help them extremely, and he would add that depth to that team 100%.
Yeah, I just think that any team that also been coached by Eric Spoelstra is going to overachieve. I think that's what we've seen
Mm-hmm.
from Miami, even like in the later year, like the worser years of the past
Yeah.
decade. Yeah,
Hall of Fame coach, without a doubt. Mike Conley stays in Utah. Important for Utah because they definitely have a championship caliber team. So re-signing him, huge. Caruso to the Bulls. We'll talk about the Bulls in a minute because they also added DeMar DeRozan.
DeRozan.
Um, let's see, anyone
They
else?
have
I
a lot.
want
The
to.
Bulls have a lot of things in the work as well, I'd say.
Yes, no, we'll talk about the Bulls in a quick second. Fournier to the Celtics. Doesn't really, or sorry, to the Knicks. Sorry, from the Celtics. Does that inspire me? Not really. We'll talk about the Knicks. That's the
This
third
morning,
team I do want to
Kemba to
cover.
Knicks as well.
Yes, Kevin to the Knicks as well. So that's why I do want to cover the Knicks. They definitely have some interesting. They definitely made some interesting moves, and just some of the player options. Chris Paul resigns in
Yeah.
Phoenix. Norman Powell stays in Portland. Kawhi unknown. That's maybe going to be the talking point. I don't think Kawhi is leaving, but you never know. And then Harold to the Wizards, whatever. I just wanted to mention that before I forgot. And then Serge Ibaka re-signs with the Clippers. I think Ibaka still has a lot to offer.
Yeah.
Injured last year in the playoffs. I think if he wasn't injured, I definitely think he helps them advance. And Bobby Portis, fan favorite, stays with the Milwaukee Bucks. That's the NBA free agency wrap up. I didn't want to say anything. So let's talk about the two teams that definitely added a lot of pieces in the East, the Bulls and the Knicks. Let's start with the Bulls. Adding DeRozan. Now they have on top of Zach LaVine
And Lonzo Ball.
and Lonzo Ball and Alex Caruso. So it's going to be different. It's definitely a different look for the Bulls. Didn't make the playoffs last year, but should be making the playoffs this year. Where do you see this team finishing, and how do you see this team adjusting? Because they definitely have a lot of youth on their side.
Just I could easily see them as like a middle tier playoff team in the East.
Yeah,
Like
that's where I'm penciling them. Yeah,
I'd say finish around like fifth,
mm-hmm.
sixth at best.
Six. Yeah, I'm on the same page with you. Yep.
Yeah, I just adding in DeRozan is kind of like it's like adding like Zach LaVine is like a rising superstar. He's not quite there yet, but he's only going to get better. DeRozan is a more kind of bona fide veteran to kind of like be key. And Lonzo Ball, like despite the
He's
problems
definitely improved. Yeah.
despite the problems he's had, he has shown improvement and the stuff that he's always been good at, which is his playmaking ability. I think he's only gotten better at that as well.
Yeah, Lonzo feels like he complements his team well. And tell me if you disagree with this, but I see Zach LaVine as a more athletic, a slightly better shooting version of DeMar DeRozan. And
Yeah.
I think they could complement each other very well. Like DeRozan still offers a lot defensively. He definitely learned a lot under Pop. He improved in that aspect in his years in San Antonio. Zach LaVine's only getting better and better.
The both wing guys that operate well on the mid range.
Yeah, like
I think
2 and 3.
Them, like
exactly. It feels like they put all the pieces necessary to be a 4, 5, 6 team in the East. The East has definitely gotten better, as we've talked about over the last year. So it definitely won't be easy, and the Bulls definitely have to gel quickly because there won't be a lot of margin for error. I don't think this year in the East, but I do agree. I think Zach LaVine had him in fantasy last year, just completely elevated his own game. I think he's only going to get better. Alonzo, I think, is now entering his prime, so I think we're going to see a definitely elevated version of Lonzo Ball compared to what we saw in New Orleans and in LA. I'm excited for the Bulls.
Yeah.
The Bulls do excite me a lot.
I completely agree.
All right, on the same page there. Are we on the same page with the Knicks? A few additions, adding Kemba Walker, most notably, on top of Julius Randle. I saw their starting 5 in the morning. I forget it right now, or their projected starting 5. Matthew, I'll just ask you, kind of, where do you see this Knicks team heading? How do you think? How do you think they'll finish going into the season? Because Kemba Walker definitely is an improvement to what they had shooting wise.
This may be controversial, but I think they have potential. I'm not saying they definitely are, but they have potential to be a top 4 team in the East.
Mm-hmm.
I think just what we saw from them last year is kind of enough to put them there, saying that they're only going to get better from what they were last year. And Julius Randle, he has hit like a new stride last season. I think we're going to see more improvement from RJ Barrett. I believe Derrick Rose is staying with the Knicks as well.
Yeah, Derrick Rose staying. Yep,
he's definitely helped them off the bench, and Kemba just only adds to that. And I think if consider that they were a playoff team last year, when we didn't even expect them to be a playoff team last year, and then we
didn't expect them to be a 4 seed, but
here
they were.
They overachieved, so I think they're going to be a top 4 team in the East this year as well.
I worry about the Knicks. I don't think they're going to be a top 4. I think if they're a playoff team, it is 7 and 8. I worry about their shooting. RJ Barrett he will improve, but he still can't shoot, and that's a huge concern for me. So unless he proves me wrong and he does develop a 3-point stroke, I do worry about them. Kemba, he struggled last year. I mean, I don't think Kemba needs to go back to the old Kemba because we definitely have not seen that over the last 2 years. The last time we really saw Kemba at his best was when the Boston knocked off the Raptors 3 years ago in the bubble. So yeah, Kemba's not at his best, and he will have to be high pressure situation in New York. And Julius Randle came off a career year. He has to replicate that because really the only reason they were a 4 seed. It was Julius Randle and the defensive approach by the Knicks. So they have to keep that defensive intensity up for 82 games. Otherwise, it's not happening. I see this team as a 7 seed. Simply because I think the Raptors are going to be better, healthier. We talked about the Bulls. I just think there's other teams that are going to be better than the Knicks this year. I think the Knicks, similar to the Maple Leafs, I don't know why this analogy is coming to my mind right now, but the Maple Leafs in the lockout season when they finished fourth, and that was, the year they famous 4-1 debacle to Boston. Yeah, the Knicks felt like a team that just kind of stumbled upon a good opportunity, but I don't buy into them simply because 3-point shooting isn't good enough on that team. Kemba Walker has to definitely elevate his game if they want to be a 4 seed, like you're calling them at the moment. And Julius Randle has to. I mean, he was incredible last year, but he has to maintain that standard if New York expects to be in the same position they were last year. And look, it was an ugly series against Atlanta. Atlanta, I guess. It's hard to analyze Atlanta because they beat
Atlanta's also a
Philadelphia.
team that overachieved, really.
Yeah, but they beat the Knicks pretty handily because Trae Young is a superstar, and that's what the Knicks don't have. Kemba Walker isn't a superstar. He's not Trae Young. Trae Young is an incredible player. And they had Trae Young, they had John Collins. They worked really well with the big man lineup. With what's his name, Capella in the center, and then they had shooters on the other side. They had Herter. They had Herter, or I'm forgetting the other guy they had, Bogdanovich, Atlanta. So Atlanta definitely had better pieces, and I could understand, and I really understood what they're doing against the Knicks. The Knicks against Atlanta faltered, and Philadelphia, we could talk about, mentally how poor they were to blow that to Atlanta, but they did. So Atlanta, I don't think are going anywhere because Trae Young's only going to get better, and the team around them is going to get better. Resigning John Collins. I think they overpaid for him, but the NBA, everyone overpays for everyone.
Yeah,
we don't have to talk about
the NBA at this point. It's not about how you overpay it. Does people do they deliver? And then
exactly.
It doesn't matter.
Like
it's
we
not
can go back on.
There's a hard salary cap like the NHL.
Yeah, like we can go back on some of the bad free agency moves done in history, like Luol Deng, Timofey Mozgov, Solomon Hill. We go back to that offseason and kind of reminisce if we want. But look, everyone was given a mountain load of money. So it's John Collins. He definitely has talent. So it's Atlanta. It's about developing and just continuing to get better because they definitely set that standard last year, and they have to kind of maintain that. So we got a little distracted from our Knicks talk, but so I see them as a 7-8. You see them as a 4. Is that where we're kind of going in that direction?
Yeah.
All right. So I guess that's the NBA recap, or NBA free agency recap. There's some that we didn't cover just because so much happened, but we'll make sure to cover everything leading up to the NBA season. And there's definitely plenty more drama that will occur before we hit opening night. Let's talk a little bit about the NHL free agency. We'll talk briefly about the Leafs. Didn't add anyone, but definitely one notable loss in Zach Hyman. For the life of me, I can't understand why we'd give up Zach Hyman. I would give up Marner over Hyman in a heartbeat. But then again, I'm not Kyle Dubas. I am not the GM of that team. How do you see this move shaping out for the Leafs? Losing a lot of heart, a lot of hustle. A guy that born in Toronto, loved the team, goes to another failing team in Edmonton.
I definitely think in the short term it does hurt the Leafs because of what Hyman offered as a player. Because I think Hyman, the way he played the game, allowed Matthews and Mark to be the way they played in the regular season. A lot of it was true to the way Hyman played. Mm-hmm. That being said, looking at what Edmonton paid Hyman, I don't. I'm glad the Leafs didn't pay him the same amount because he is dirty. He has an 8-year contract. I don't want to be paying him. I don't expect Zach Hyman to be Zach Hyman for the next 8 years. I see maybe 4 or 5 years more of productivity from him, but he came in the same year as Matthews and Martin, but he is also older than them, and I don't think he's going to have the longevity. Just that paying $5.5 million will make worth. But I
Yeah,
don't. It's hard to see him leave. I think at the end of the day, if that was the way you had to pay him, I think it was the right choice not paying him 8 years, 5.5 million.
yeah, they need to replace that though, because he was a huge member or a key piece on that first line with Matthews and Marner. He made everything happen. Just getting beyond the, getting on beyond the circle. I'm just
Yeah,
recycling pucks. I'm just doing the dirty work. Rarely missed a game. Just always so reliable. So as a fellow Jew, I'm gonna miss Zach Hyman a lot. It could be because I'm Jewish and I can't really remember when the Leafs had such a likable Jew on their team. So I will miss Zach Hyman a lot. Yeah, everyone in Toronto is gonna miss Zach
yeah.
Hyman. Just such a likable player. Freddie Gahn didn't play last year, so basically a straight swap with Mrazek, who definitely improved with Carolina last year. So we're not getting the same Mrazek that we saw previously in other teams. He's being all around the block, Peter
He's been on the
Mrazek. So
Flyers. Wasn't very good.
being on the Flyers, yeah, being on a few teams. So we're getting, I guess, the veteran version of Peter Mrazek to go alongside Jack Campbell. So that should be a nice little duo there.
I think
But
Jack Ham proved though that he can be the starting goalie like last year.
yeah, so they'll definitely split reps. They'll definitely play based on who is kind of hot and kind of who has the momentum. So I mean, a lot's up for grabs with the Maple Leafs. So not minding a spot, but they didn't add anything. That's really all they added. Backup goalie, lost Zach Hyman. I really don't know what Kyle Dubas was doing. Maybe he didn't like the market. Fair enough. I'm not the GM, but a little bit of an uninspiring day, I'd say, for the Toronto Maple Leafs.
Yeah.
Is there anything you want to cover with the NHL? Because there's definitely a lot of moves happening, especially with your Flyers. So
Yeah.
I'll give
I
you a
mean,
moment to kind of
I think
assess the Flyers' moves. Sorry.
uh, I was gonna say I think the Flyers more into than the free agency. I think what the bigger thing was like the trades we made. I think trading away Nolan Patrick and Phil Myers for Ryan Ellis. I think that was a great decision. A part of me was sad because I remember when we drafted Nolan Patrick, I was really hoping that like he'd be like that
He would
future
turn
star
out.
for Flyers. But I think like at this point, you gotta accept that injuries play too much of his time as like in his like coming to the league, and like without that development, I don't think he's gonna develop into a player that we want him to be. And I think Ryan Ellis kind of fills in the shoes of what we lost from Niskanen. I think except he offers more offensively as well. And I think playing him with Provorov, if he can stay healthy, it's going to really help our decor a lot. There are some more questionable things the Flyers have done. I think signing trading for Ristolainen was an odd
Questionable.
choice, especially since we got rid of Gosper for the contract and we trade for Ristolainen who's getting paid more and does the exact same thing as Gosper.
hmm
So that's one of the few things that made me nervous. I like the Keith Yandel signing. It was like he
Keith
offered,
Yandel was a big signing. I think that's the
yeah,
best signing the Flyers did.
I agree. I like having him on. Martin Jones, he worries me as a backup goalie, but maybe it was because San Jose wasn't a great team overall last year, so I'm giving the benefit of the doubt as a backup goalie.
hmm
Uh, the big one was the trade of Jacob Voracek.
Yeah.
It pains me that this trade happened but I can't be mad at it because it makes so much sense because we're paying him 8 million and he is not worth that money anymore. And Cam Atkinson's cheaper. I think a huge thing that problem with Voracek was that he was a playmaker and he always played with Giroux, who was also a playmaker.
Yeah.
I think just together, like I always say it's playmaking and goal scoring. They're like a 1-2 punch, right? Like you see it with Marner and Matthews. You see it with like
Of course.
Crosby with Malkin. You see it with
Yep.
like even back then you saw it with like Gretzky and like Yari Curry. Like I think every great playmaker needs a great goal scorer, and that's what the problem with Voracek and Drew as a duo because they're both playmakers. And even meanwhile, Sean Couture was more like a lockdown guy. Atkinson's more
hmm
of a sniper, so I do like the trade quite a bit. I think it makes sense. I'm sad that Voracek's no longer a Flyer, but I do like the move overall. I gotta say.
The one thing I forgot to mention about the Leafs, lost Nick Foligno, so they basically gave up a first rounder, and he goes to Boston. So I'm a little, that put me a little bit off edge. The one team I do want to talk about, they made two key defensive signings, or one was a re-signing in Zach Wisniewski and adding Jake Bean. I think Columbus is definitely going to
Yeah.
be a contender that no one's really talking about. They have a lot of attacking talent. They did lose Cam Atkinson, but I think that he is replaceable. So I
Yeah.
do think I like Columbus. Defensively, I think if they get great goaltending from whoever is in net, Columbus is always a rotating a roulette of goaltenders. So we will see who ends up being the staple in there. But I definitely think they have a great decor to protect whoever
Yeah.
is in that net. Um, yeah, we'll definitely cover more of the NHL as free agency rolls on and as puck drop gets closer. But we do want to shift towards the Olympics, where there has been a lot happening.
Before we do that, we
For
forgot to
Canada,
talk.
yep.
Before we do that, we
What
forgot
I
to talk
miss?
about the draft.
Yes, sorry, the NBA draft. So not too many surprises. Cade Cunningham goes one. The Raptors is where the surprise came. We were supposed to pick Jalen Suggs. Everyone, I don't know who didn't. I guess except for Masai Ujiri knew that we were not picking Jalen Suggs. We were indeed picking Scotty Miller out of Florida State.
Sky Barnes.
Scotty Barnes, sorry. Oh, that's embarrassing. So Scotty Barnes from Florida State. Um, yeah, people compare him to OG Anunoby, long, lengthy defenseman, D guy, not defenseman. Mixing my NHL terminology here. Yeah, so compared to OG Anunoby, people are saying that he isn't quite NBA ready yet. He hasn't kind of reached his full kind of arsenal of abilities, maybe compared to Jalen Suggs, who people are calling a lot more NBA ready. Um, I don't know. Where do you see this move? Because another high draft pick for the Raptors. We know what happened last time. We talked about Andrea Bargnani. I'd prefer not to. So we can talk about um, Jalen Suggs and Scotty Barnes. Jalen Suggs goes 5 to Orlando. So Orlando has an interesting situation now because they have a lot of point guards on their roster. How's that going to fit in? But let's focus on the Raptors and Scotty Barnes. Let's say Miller again. Let's focus on Scotty Barnes. How do you see this move shaping out? Do you think Masai Ujiri once again got it right in? Is this a moment of kind of Raptors fans had expectations of one thing and now have to kind of readjust? But is it a good move for the Raptors? I'll leave it at that.
It's hard to say if it's a good or bad move because we really just haven't seen enough. We know he has potential there. We know that he has the ability of like a larger playmaker. He's I think he's a slightly better shooter. He's a better shooter than Ben Simmons. He's still not a great shooter himself, but like he is kind of like that larger point guard that kind of has a playmaking ability, the defensive ability. I think part of me just sees Jalen Suggs as that future star that can kind of lead the team, and I kind of saw it in him for the Raptors. I see Scotty Barnes more as like a key piece on a championship team, but I don't see him being the number one guy myself. So it's
interesting. A time will tell move.
It really is a time will tell move. If Masai Ujiri has other like moves that he wants to make or other things to plan for going forward, that will kind of make all the difference of it. But it's really hard to say at the moment because we really don't fully know what Scotty Barnes is fully capable of.
Just to recap the top five: Cade Cunningham goes 1, Jalen Green for the Rockets at 2, Evan Mobley at USC goes number 3, and then the Raptors get Scotty Barnes, Magic draft Jalen Suggs. Out of those 5, are there any? I guess we can kind of take out Scotty Barnes and Jalen Suggs. Out of the top 3 picks, who do you think can make the biggest impact next year? Because 3 really bad teams. Here's how I see it. Cade Cunningham is going to take time for him to adjust. He's going to be the guy on the Pistons because the Pistons have absolutely nobody, including a head coach. Dwayne Casey's still there, so as long as he's there, I can roast the Pistons as long as I want. Because as you know, I am not a Dwayne Casey fan.
Oh, really? I haven't noticed.
I mean, look, the Pistons are a dumpster fire. Kyle Lowry and DeRozan carried him for 5 years. I can't believe he won Coach of the Year twice or one. Did he win it twice? Why do I feel like he won it twice? He definitely won it once.
Once. One he fired.
Exactly. Yeah, they got rid of him when he won Coach of the Year. So the most undeserved Coach of the Year in history. Just want to leave that at that.
Okay, hold up. Being a regular season, he didn't do a bad job as a coach.
Well, congrats. Look at the regular season.
But like Coach of the Year is based on regular season.
Regular season means nothing. That's why the Coach of the Year is a fraudulent award. The only person that should win it every year. I would say before, times definitely changed, but when Dwayne Casey won it, the coach of the year should have been Popovich because he was the coach of
Yeah.
he like if you had a here's how I look at coach of the year, and I like the NFL analogy because of Bill Belichick. If you had a draft of coaches every year and each team how an NBA or how an actual draft would work, like the worst team gets, the best pick.
Yeah.
So if they did that for coaching, who would get picked every single year first overall in the NFL?
Bill Belichick.
Thank you. So the fact that anyone else can win Coach of the Year is a sham, is a joke. And when Dwayne Casey won it, it was a sham and a joke. Got absolutely lit up by LeBronto that year. Were they swept when Dwayne Casey was fired? I'm pretty sure that's the year they got
Yeah,
swept.
that's it.
So yeah. Anyways, a fraudulent coach. He's rotting away in Detroit. I'm extremely happy about that. Again, a little side note, a little distracted off our NBA draft talk. So I don't think Kate Cunningham can make as much of an impact just because I think Detroit has absolutely no talent. And I mean, he'll definitely be the guy to watch, but I just don't know if anyone's actually going to watch the Pistons next year.
Yeah.
Other than for Cade Cunningham, same thing with the Rockets. God, they stink. Jalen Green will definitely be a little bit of, a spark, but I think Evan Mobley and the Cavs, I think he'll have a chance to impact because they have two great guards in Sexton and Darius Garland. Adding a big guy, I think they're definitely building some Cavaliers and they're intriguing. I think that's kind of the team out of like the three worst teams that we just mentioned from last year. I think the Cavaliers are going to be an interesting team to watch this year. They definitely will put up a huge fight against some teams.
Yeah, because they're definitely a team that's like trying to like build for future, and they're trying to get a bit more on the rise. Like we're not
And they're doing it
enough,
right. Yeah, they're clearly doing a good job of it
we're not
because they
actually
have talent.
we're not actually past that level of actually breaking through. Like we have to see, but they definitely have a plan in place, which is more we can say about the Pistons and Rockets.
Yes. Okay, so enough to bashing on bad teams in the NBA. Let's switch to sporting excellence. Let's now go to the Olympics, where let's start with Canada. Domination in the medals by women. For a while, for the first, I guess, maybe I think 7 or 8 days. I don't know when Degrasse won his bronze in the 100, but before that, it was only woman that had won. Let's go, I guess, a little bit in chronological order. To start with the first gold medal, Margaret McNeil won it in the 100-meter butterfly. That's the one that surprised me the most because that was the first gold medal, and I watched her the night before in the 4x100 relay where Penny Oleksiak really helped them win bronze, and then the next day Maggie McNeil, 100-meter butterfly, wins gold. I guess that's her specialty, and that was her moment in the sun. Congrats to Margaret McNeil. Incredible. Let's just go through all the women in the swimming program. The 4x100. Especially led by Penny Oleksiak. She is now the most decorated, I guess, is it Canadian Olympian or Summer Olympian? I haven't been able to
Canadian
identify that.
I think.
Yeah, because there's definitely been some dominance in the winter sports for Canada.
Yeah.
Let's just talk about Penny Oleksiak for a moment. How can she push on and because no golds this time around. She won gold in Rio. She hasn't won gold in Rio, but no gold this time around. But she has become the most decorated Summer Olympian. How do you see her future going forward? She's only 21. I think her moment is going to be in Paris in 2024. I think that's where all the expectations and that's where all this kind of hype and build up for her is kind of leading.
Yeah, I think her career as swimmer is only get better. I think I think when we saw her in Rio, it kind of took everyone by surprise because she was like just this young kid. Like she was, I think at the time she was only like 16, I believe, 16 or 17, and she kind of came out of nowhere, and everyone was impressed with this young kid just dominating in swimming in Rio. And I think there was a bit more expectations coming in this time because of what we saw from Rio, and not in the English she didn't win gold. She still, for the most part, delivered. She still, she still definitely didn't disappoint, despite not winning gold. And I think she can only go up from here because I think people are each year that she comes to the Olympics to do swimming. I think more attention will be put on her, and I think where she kind of lives up to the hype around her, it will be seen. But I think she can because so far she hasn't disappointed.
It's interesting because Penny Oleksiak, there's been a lot of talk about kind of like the greatest of all time, and she's young, but I don't think So I think, these kind of claims, I think we're
She's too
getting
young to be in the GOAT race.
exactly like we're getting way too far ahead of ourselves. And as incredible as an athlete she is, she wasn't the star of swimming. In Canada she is, but in the Olympics, I could think of five people. I just Katie Ledecky.
Yeah.
She really cemented herself as one of the greatest of all time, winning multiple golds in the 800, 1500. Ariana Titmus won two golds in the 200, and I think the 400 as well as silvers in the 800. Won the 4x100 relay with Australia. She carried them. Caleb Dressel from America dominated some of the events on that side in the men's bracket. He racked up, I think, 5 medals total. I don't know the exact number, but he definitely had an incredible Olympics. Caleb Dressel, he was swimming out of his mind. And there's a poll. I'm losing. I'm forgetting his name just because there's so much that happens in the Olympics. You lose track. But there was, I'm pretty sure, a poll that did fairly well swimming wise in the butterfly and the freestyle. So I don't think, look, we can talk about not the deck. We talk about Oleksiak, but she's so young, and it's not like she's racking up gold medals right now. I mean, she has one from Rio, which was an incredible achievement at 16. But I
Yeah.
think this time around we have to kind of slow down the talks, and we have to kind of analyze where she's going in the future. Because
Yeah.
at the moment, like if you want to talk about the best Canadian Olympian in the summer, Degrasse has passed her
Yeah.
by winning gold today in the 200, bronze in the silver, sorry, bronze in the my mind's a little scrambled right now, bronze in the 100, in the 100-meter race, but winning gold today, redeeming himself from 2016, where Usain Bolt won everything sprinting wise. And that was his kind of swan song.
Yeah.
But if we're talking about greatest Olympian, Degrasse went toe to toe with Usain Bolt in Rio, just missing out on gold just because Usain Bolt's the greatest of all time. But Degrasse today winning gold, medals anytime he's in a final, like an international final. I'm pretty sure he's medaled every single time he's been in a final race. To me, Degrasse is. I don't want to be comparing these guys like
Okay, you can't.
who's
Okay,
better. Both are incredible
it's running and
athletes,
swimming. They're
incredible
two different
stories.
sports.
Exactly, but I think we got a little far ahead of ourselves with Oleksiak. Degrasse is in his prime. Oleksiak not yet. And there's definitely been much better swimmers that we've seen. Degrasse, I think he is the star right now in the world of sprinting. He is the guy. Penny Oleksiak is not like the one in swimming, especially not in this Olympics. So a Canadian achievement, phenomenal. And I'm incredibly proud of Penny Oleksiak. I mean, an incredible swimmer, but this wasn't like this isn't her best. She'll only get better. So I think we have to kind of that's what we have to talk about. We can't talk about Penny Oleksiak like she's a finished product. And I think we've almost distracted ourselves and told ourselves that, I mean, she's the greatest. Like not yet. We have to hold on, because when you look at the scope of swimming and we look at all the Olympians that have competed in all the races, she didn't win gold. I think she maybe only won silver. So we have to kind of like truly evaluate kind of what we've seen in this Olympics.
I agree with you. I agree with you on this. I think we should also say that we're not saying that like
no, it's an incredible achievement. But if we're talking about greatest of all time, right? Like I think
we're not saying she can't be the greatest, but
yeah, we set the bar, like she's there already, and we're forgetting how young she is. I think not we. Some people are just kind of getting caught up in the hype, simply like similar to what we did in Rio. It's getting caught up in the hype of kind of what she's doing. She's only getting better. We have to calm down, and we have to remember that there have been more seasoned swimmers like Ledecky who dominated some races, and Ariana Titmus, who for Australia brought home a couple golds in the relay and in the individual events. So Penny Oleksiak, her Olympics, in my opinion, like Degrasse, his Olympics were now. I think Penny Oleksiak's best Olympics are going to be in the next two.
I agree. I was about to say this. Why I see from Oleksiak this Olympics is what we saw from Degrasse 4 years ago. Yes. I think Degrasse against Usain Bolt, we're like, okay, he's a legit contender. We see him, he's not the greatest yet, or one of the greatest yet. But I think this year he kind of bonafide himself. And I think we see Oleksiak coming up this year, from last time and this time. I think in 4 years, she'll bonify herself as one of the top contenders. And sure is a
Yes.
contender, but like as like one of the
Yeah,
more
but
in the
we want her to
conversation.
win gold. If we're talking about greatest, she has to win,
Yeah,
right? Because at the end of the day, you remember the winners, you remember the champions, and Penny Oleksiak isn't there yet.
yeah.
She's not a champion of her sport. So I think that's the exact point I wanted to make. She's not a champion yet. Andre
Yeah.
Degrasse today cemented himself as a world champion. Penny Oleksiak isn't there yet, but I think
She will be.
I think she will be. You're right. I don't want to get too far out of myself, but I think she will be either in Paris or in 2028. But we have to kind of calm ourselves down a little bit on Penny Oleksiak because I
Again,
think
she's
we've talked
21 years
about
old.
her
She's 21 years
exactly,
old.
exactly, and that's why we have to calm down a little bit. I think the Canadian media has they do it so often. They see a young superstar and then we go overboard on
Yeah,
her. She didn't win. She's a phenomenal swimmer, but her time, and that's the narrative that we need to focus on. Her time is next. She isn't now like Degrasse was in
yeah,
2016. Not now. She has next. So
yeah.
that's where we have to focus on. And we have to kind of acknowledge her achievement, but we also have to understand we have to push
Yeah,
her further.
we have every right to expect more from her going forward as a
Yes.
swimmer.
Okay. I think now we're on the same page. I'm
Yeah,
extremely I think we had hashed some things that we had to kind of talk about what's it called? Talk about the situation and kind of where Penny truly is. So I think we've kind of established that through this talk. So I'm happy we got that out. The one thing I do want to talk about, though, a lot more controversial, is Simone Biles. She participated in her event. I'm not the biggest gymnastics what's the word expert, but we can talk a little bit about kind of the controversy, her doing the twisties, which is basically the equivalent of the yips and this like the nerves. And gymnastics, it's a very technical sport and you have to be
yeah,
very precise, but she pulled out of her team event and the US ended up finishing in silver. She participated in a different event the other day, finishing bronze. So I'll ask. I'll start with you. What do you make of this whole situation, and how do you assess kind of the talk that's been going around in the media?
I think. I
Like,
mean,
it's definitely a complex situation.
with every situation, there's always gonna be two sides to it, and just the way the world works, like like both sides are going to be at the most extreme level, and I think the worst case though are the people who are saying who don't understand why she would uh drop out because they don't really understand that with the mental state of everything. Like it's very similar to I think the Naomi Osaka situation in terms of the mental part of it of when she dropped out of the World Open, the U.S. Open, I think, or one of the
It may be
tournaments.
in the French. I think French and Wimbledon she missed out on this year.
Yeah,
US is yet to come.
it's very similar situation. People at times like you see this athlete as one of the best in their respective discipline, and they have every opportunity to win it all, and they still dropped out. And I think like uh with Simone Biles, like, she has like the Stephen Glass disease, like, or the yips, we call it, like
Yeah, the twisties. I think they refer to it in gymnastics.
yeah, and because of that, like you know, I feel like with the yips, it's not the most like
Noticeable or
people don't really
yeah.
understand it fully, right? As they would like other injuries or other like issues with like physical issues, right? Because like it's all mental, right? And I think because I think some people are being a little ignorant to the idea of it being an actual problem for athletes and like it being a justifiable reason to actually drop out of competing.
Yeah, here's what bothers me about the situation. She competed in the team event and she didn't do well in her kind of portion.
Yeah.
Um, just she dropped out in the finals, and US ended up finishing silver to Russia. And I understand the twist. I understand, nerves, and I understand the pressure that Simone Biles is definitely under.
Yeah.
But my biggest problem with her is the way she's kind of portrayed herself in the media the last year, with the whole, goat unitard, and she's been promoting herself as the greatest of all time. And then to pull out of an event right before, the gold in it's not an individual event. It was a team event. Her team needed her. And I mean, the Olympics is a once in a lifetime opportunity. Her teammates have been training their entire lives for this moment. and then she dropped. It's just I understand that mental health is extremely important,
Yeah,
but if her mental health was in such a bad state, she shouldn't have gone to the Olympics. Period. She should have said,
that's
"I'm
true.
not mentally ready for this," because in my opinion, she let her team down. She wasn't injured. But I think the if she would have overcome the twisties and then gone on whether or not she did horribly or not, I would have had more respect for that. And that's just me personally. My other problem is the second she drops out, she shouldn't be competing in another event.
Yeah,
Like
that's the part that's
if her mental health is that bad and something is so severe, because I've had my mental health issues, where you're going through something, you just don't want to get out of bed. And I get, she's in a complete different position than I am, as Olympic champion. She has all the accolades in the world, but something bothers me about the way she dropped out and the timing of it. And then she goes on to compete a week later. Something isn't adding up in this situation. And look, it's not that she has to explain herself or she has to justify
yeah.
herself. She dropped out of an event where it was the finals in a team competition. She's not letting she's on a team, and she has teammates that have worked just as hard as she has for this moment that comes once in a lifetime, and they finish silver. So I do think we have to take that into account.
I'll say
And
this.
I can't think we can, dismiss this as, mental health as easily as, just, making her a hero for dropping out, because there's definitely more to the story than that.
I'll say this. I tend to disagree with a lot of people's criticisms towards this issue.
Mhm.
I agree though with the way you're saying it. I agree with the way you're because I think the weirdest thing is the timing of everything and the way the
Yeah, because she started the event, but
yeah, the
in the
way it was
final she
handled.
pulled out. And I think people are just forgetting about that because, the way the media works. Because some people attacked her, and then like people shouldn't be attacking her. That's
Yeah,
ridiculous. But
that's
what should be happening is an open conversation in the media, not only about mental health. If her mental health was that severe, she dropped. In my opinion, she just dropped out at the wrong time.
yeah,
Like, why not go out? Like, look, even if you fall, like, go fall. You have nothing else to prove. You're an Olympic champion. But if you're gonna, call yourself the GOAT, if you're gonna put on your leotard, if you're gonna, prance around calling yourself the greatest of all time, I don't care what's going on in your life. You can compete, and then in the finals decide to drop out of a team event. It
yeah.
bothers me, and I don't like the look of that. And people just tend to be glossing over that, and we just have to focus on mental health. Like we can't, have any other discussion. I'm like, I think we should have a discussion about this, because the timing of it all, and then the fact that she competed later on, it bugs me, because if she cites mental health as the issue and why she didn't participate in that event, she shouldn't be participating in any other individual event in this Olympics, and she did.
Yeah, that part, like,
And I'm no gymnastics expert, neither are
yeah,
you. But I mean, this is Olympics. The world's watching. She's self-proclaimed herself as the greatest of all time. And she
it's
probably is, because what like some of the things she's been able to do in gymnastics is remarkable. Like some of the routines that she's executed. Like I think she did like a triple flip.
yeah,
Gymnastics. Just watching it at the Olympics, it's beautiful to watch, because these Olympians and these gymnasts just do things that are just remarkable. But the way she labeled herself as the GOAT, right? Like imagine Usain Bolt pulling out of a race, or out of a 4x100 relay.
yeah,
Imagine he did that in 2016. Like imagine he just pulls out before the finals. Like he qualifies, does everything, and he cites nerves, and then he drops out, and then Jamaica has to replace him. Like imagine the conversation we'd be having then, right?
it's.
Like I think
I think again, the
it's a very
complex is
complex issue. Yeah.
yeah, and I think that the dilemma is this because or I should know the right word, but the complexity is this because when you ignore the context of everything,
Yes.
what she's doing is completely right and completely fair when you ignore the context.
Yes.
But when you look at the context, it like things don't necessarily just line up naturally. Like there are a lot of inconsistencies with her decision, and I think that's what the problem is here, really.
Yeah. I think we end this discussion saying we hope Simone all the best, because
Yeah, for sure.
I'm sure she's an amazing. I've never met her in person, but she gives off the impression that she's a very likable person. She's very well respected. But I just think going into the future, and I think this is going to be more of an issue going into the
I think
future.
it's not just her. I
Mhm.
think any athlete really. Like,
Exactly.
they definitely protect your mental health. But if you are supposed to be there for a team, you know,
Mhm.
drop out early and let your team be prepared for that instead
Yeah,
of
because
like,
they had to replace her in the
yeah,
finals, right? They qualified to get there, and then honestly, they finished silver probably because Simone didn't compete. So I think that's where the conversation, I guess, ends. We both had our say. It's definitely a very complex issue that will definitely be discussed more within the media going into the future. Of course, always protect your mental health first, matter who you are. If you're a
yeah,
world class athlete, or just always protect your mental health because that's your number one. And you, without your mental health, you go in a downward spiral. I think we both know that.
yeah,
Always protect that. So we wish Simone all the best. We're happy that she did end up competing in an event, winning bronze. But it's just an important discussion to have, given the fact that um, the way she kind of dropped out. So there'll definitely be more on this going forward, and we'll definitely continue to cover the Olympics next week as that continues to round up. Canada goes for gold versus Sweden Thursday night. I saw something about they may reschedule that. So if you're Canadian, just keep an eye out for
yeah,
that because they may move it to 4 a.m. rather than 10 p.m. Thursday, given the heat in the Olympic Stadium. There's no wind. I was reading. I'm giving the ecological report for the Canadian soccer fans out there. That's what I've been reading. So they may move the venue. They may move the time to kind of make it more suitable for both Swedes and Canadians. I don't know what's going to happen, but just keep an eye on that. If you're a Canadian soccer fan, getting their revenge on the US was huge. I just want to shout out Megan Rapinoe for being a little bit of a classy loser, but it's just fun to shout out Megan Rapinoe and her purple hair for finally losing to Canada. She said, I don't think she said in her post game interview, she don't think she's ever lost to Canada. The first time in 20 years, it was 2000, the last time the Canadian woman beat the US woman. So a nice revenge game from 2012 because all Canadian soccer fans will have nightmares and PTSD from that, but they go for gold. The color of the medal will change from 2012. So good luck to the Canadian woman. We will definitely discuss that. We may bring on our footy expert, Daria, to recap that final next week. And we'll continue to cover the Olympics and the NBA and NHL as well as the NFL preseason as that gets underway. From myself and Matthew Choi, it's been we've had a lot to cover today. So thank you for sticking with us, and we'll see you guys next week.
perfect.